The day had started like any other, with the boy and his younger sibling walking through the store excited to finish their school supply shopping. But it had quickly turned into a moment they would never forget. After the manager had slapped the boy, fear had filled his chest, but with his mother's calm presence, he had found courage he didn't know he had. By the time they were leaving, he felt a mixture of relief, pride, and understanding that the events of the day had taught him lessons he would carry for the rest of his life. As they walked toward the exit, the mother held their hands tightly, speaking softly to them. She reminded them to stay composed and to remember that even in frightening situations, calmness and dignity are powerful. The boy listened closely, feeling the truth in her words. He realized that fear was natural, but it could be faced and overcome with patience and courage. The younger sibling, still clinging to him, began to relax, sensing the protective energy of their mother. Outside, the air felt lighter, a sharp contrast to the tense atmosphere they had left behind. The children took deep breaths, feeling relief wash over them. The boy looked up at his mother, trying to express the mix of emotions he felt. She smiled gently, reassuring him without words, letting him know that he had handled the situation well and that he was safe now. The mother knew that this experience would shape them, teaching them more than any lesson at school could. They walked to the car, the boy holding the door open for his younger sibling as his mother placed bags of supplies in the trunk. She didn't rush them. She allowed them a moment to process everything that had happened. The boy understood that being calm in difficult moments was a strength, and seeing his mother navigate the situation had shown him exactly how to act with composure and integrity. As they drove home, the boy reflected on the day. He thought about the manager's actions, the initial fear he had felt, and the courage he had discovered within himself. He understood that the mother's calm authority had protected him, but it had also been a lesson in standing up for what is right, in expecting respect, and in facing injustice without losing one's dignity. He felt proud, not because he had done anything extraordinary, but because he had witnessed and learned from his mother's example. At home, the mother helped the children put away their school supplies. She spoke to them about the importance of accountability, explaining that everyone is responsible for their actions, and that consequences are part of life. The boy listened intently, thinking back to the store manager and how his behavior had been unacceptable. He realized that fairness and integrity mattered more than any immediate reaction to anger. The younger sibling, still processing the day, asked questions about why people sometimes act unfairly. The mother explained that not everyone makes good choices, and sometimes people react in ways that are harmful. But she emphasized that what mattered most was how they responded. She reminded them that they could always choose calmness, courage, and honesty in the face of adversity. The boy nodded, understanding that life would present challenges, but he had the tools to face them. Later, as they sat together at the kitchen table, the mother discussed with her children the value of empathy and understanding. She explained that while the store manager's actions were wrong, it was important to recognize that everyone has struggles, and that responding with compassion does not mean accepting wrongdoing. The boy felt the depth of her wisdom, realizing that strength often came with patience and thoughtfulness. The boy thought about the customers who had watched the incident unfold, some of whom had supported them. He understood that the world is full of people with different reactions, but true courage and integrity come from within. He felt inspired by the example his mother had set, recognizing that she had turned a frightening moment into a powerful teaching experience. He knew that he would remember this day forever, not for the fear, but for the lessons learned. That evening, the mother sat with her children, reflecting on the day's events. She spoke about the importance of standing up for oneself respectfully, of expecting accountability from others, and of acting with calm authority. She wanted her children to internalize these lessons, to understand that dignity and courage are more powerful than anger or fear. The boy listened, absorbing every word, understanding that he had witnessed a rare and valuable example of strength. Over the next few days, the boy noticed changes in himself. He felt more confident in handling small challenges, remembering his mother's calm strength. He understood that fear does not define him, and that composure, courage, and integrity can guide him through difficult situations. He felt proud of how he had handled the incident, knowing that he had learned a lifelong lesson in bravery and moral strength. The mother also reflected on the incident, Grateful that her children had experienced this teaching moment in a way that was safe and constructive. She knew that life would present other challenges, but she had equipped her children with the tools to face them with dignity. She understood that parenting sometimes means protecting children from harm, but it also means using difficult moments to teach resilience, courage, and respect for oneself and others. In school and social settings, the boy began to notice how he reacted differently to challenges. He remembered the calm authority his mother had demonstrated, and he applied it in small ways, speaking up respectfully when something felt wrong, standing by his principles and handling minor conflicts with patience. The lessons from that day in the store became part of his character, shaping how he approached life and relationships. The family also spoke about the importance of forgiveness and empathy. The mother explained that while the store manager's actions had been wrong, holding on to anger would not help them grow. Instead, they focused on the lessons learned, on the importance of standing firm in the face of wrongdoing, and on using composure to navigate life's challenges. The boy felt a sense of peace, knowing that courage and forgiveness could coexist. Months later, the boy would recall the incident whenever he faced difficult situations. He remembered his mother's calm authority, her insistence on accountability, and her ability to turn fear into learning. He realized that courage is not about fighting physically, but about standing firm, thinking clearly, and acting with integrity. This understanding shaped the way he approached school, friendships, and new challenges. The mother, proud of her children, continued to reinforce these lessons in daily life. She encouraged them to speak up respectfully, to handle unfair situations with calmness, and to always expect accountability from others while maintaining their own integrity. The boy absorbed these lessons fully, internalizing the idea that true strength comes from composure, courage, and dignity. The story of that day became a defining moment in their lives. The boy learned that fear can be faced and overcome, that injustice can be addressed with calm authority, and that accountability and integrity are values worth standing for. The mother had not only protected her children, but had taught them invaluable lessons that would guide them through life. The family often reflected on the experience together. They discussed what had happened, what they had learned, and how they could apply those lessons in the future. The boy felt grateful for the guidance and example of his mother, understanding that the true power in difficult moments comes from calmness, courage, and moral clarity. As the days turned into weeks and months, the boy's confidence grew. He felt more prepared to face challenges, knowing that he had learned how to act with integrity, courage, and composure. The memory of the incident in the store remained with him, not as a source of fear, but as a lesson in strength, accountability, and the power of standing up for what is right. In the end, the boy realized that the day had been transformative. He had faced fear, witnessed justice, and learned invaluable lessons from his mother. He understood that life would have difficult moments, but with composure, integrity, and courage, he could navigate them successfully. The experience had shaped him, instilling values that would guide him through every challenge he would face in the future. And most importantly, he knew that his mother's calm presence and unwavering strength had shown him what true courage really meant. The store had returned to a quiet buzz, but the tension from the incident still lingered. The mother stayed close to her children, her calm presence a protective shield around them. She could feel the weight of responsibility, not just for their safety, but for teaching them a lesson that would stick with them for the rest of their lives. She wanted them to understand that courage was not just about standing up physically, but about facing injustice with dignity and reason. The senior management team had gathered, and the mother was still speaking, calmly explaining every detail. She described what had happened without exaggeration, letting her observations and the witness statements speak for themselves. The store manager, who had slapped her son, shifted uncomfortably under the scrutiny, realizing that the situation was far beyond a minor incident. The mother's calm authority had completely changed the atmosphere in the store. The boy clung to his mother's side, still trembling slightly, but gaining confidence with every word she spoke. He noticed how people around them were watching, some nodding silently, others whispering to each other. A few were still recording the interaction on their phones, understanding the significance of what they were witnessing. The mother's quiet strength had drawn everyone's attention, and he realized that sometimes power could be demonstrated simply through calm composure. The mother addressed the manager directly, explaining clearly that his actions were unacceptable. She did not yell or make threats, but her words carried a weight that could not be ignored. The manager, now clearly shaken, tried to offer explanations, but his words were hollow and lacked conviction. He had underestimated the situation and the mother's presence. The boy watched, understanding the importance of honesty and responsibility. Excuses could not replace accountability. Senior management listened closely, nodding as the mother spoke. They could see the sincerity in her voice and the seriousness of the situation. The mother requested a formal apology from the manager, explaining that it needed to be genuine for her son to understand the value of accountability. The senior manager agreed and instructed the staff to ensure the apology would happen properly. The boy observed every reaction, realizing that respect and honesty mattered more than anger or punishment. The mother then spoke to her children softly, keeping them close. She whispered reassurance, telling them that they had done nothing wrong and that it was the manager who needed to take responsibility. The boy felt a small surge of pride, understanding that he was learning an important life lesson through this experience. Courage and dignity, he realized, could shine through even in the most challenging moments. A few customers approached, offering support and words of encouragement. They commended the mother for handling the situation with such grace and authority. She smiled and thanked them, but kept her attention on the children and the issue at hand. She wanted her children to understand that while support from others is valuable, the true lesson lies in one's own actions and composure. The manager who had slapped the boy began to show signs of genuine remorse. His hands fidgeted and his eyes avoided the mother's gaze. The mother gave him a moment, showing patience but making it clear that an apology and acknowledgement of wrongdoing were non-negotiable. The boy watched intently, seeing firsthand that accountability required facing one's mistakes honestly. The mother guided her children to a quieter area of the store, keeping them calm while continuing to observe the situation. She whispered words of encouragement, explaining that fear is natural, but courage is facing fear with calmness and clarity. The children listened closely, absorbing not just the words but the energy and confidence of their mother. It was a lesson in both action and presence. The senior manager approached the mother, acknowledging her concerns and assuring her that proper steps would be taken. He promised an internal review, additional staff training, and disciplinary measures against the manager who had slapped the boy. The mother thanked him politely, emphasizing the importance of follow-through. The boy felt reassured, knowing that justice was being pursued responsibly. As the manager prepared to apologize, he spoke quietly to the mother, his words lacking conviction at first. She encouraged him gently but firmly to be honest, explaining that sincerity mattered above all else. The boy watched, realizing that the power of honesty and accountability could transform even a frightening situation into a meaningful lesson. The mother's guidance made him feel safe, supported, and proud. The store staff began to understand the gravity of the situation, watching how the mother handled the incident. Her calm authority and insistence on accountability set an example for them, showing that respect and responsibility are essential in any role. The boy noticed this too, learning that leadership is not about power or fear, but about integrity and composure. The mother then turned her attention back to her children, reminding them of the importance of staying calm and composed. She explained that life would present challenges, and it's how one responds that defines character. The boy listened carefully, understanding that the experience was teaching him more than just about standing up for oneself. It was teaching him about courage, integrity, and the importance of acting with calm authority. The crowd of customers continued to watch silently, some nodding in appreciation of the mother's handling of the situation. The boy realized that their attention was not intimidating but affirming, a subtle acknowledgement that justice was being observed. He felt empowered, understanding that courage can be quiet and firm, not loud or aggressive. The manager, now facing the full weight of accountability, apologized sincerely to the boy. His voice was quieter than expected, and his words reflected genuine regret. The mother guided her son to listen, ensuring that he understood the importance of the apology and the lesson it carried. The boy felt a sense of closure, realizing that accountability and honesty could bring resolution, even after something unfair had occurred. The mother then addressed the senior manager and staff once more, emphasizing the importance of training and awareness to prevent similar incidents. She made clear that respect for all customers, especially children, must be a priority. Her words were not harsh but carried authority, and the staff listened carefully, absorbing the message and reflecting on their own roles. The boy stood beside his mother, holding her hand, feeling the weight of the experience but also a sense of empowerment. He had witnessed his mother transform a frightening situation into a lesson in integrity and courage. The younger sibling, still holding his hand, began to relax completely, sensing the protective presence of their mother and the resolution of the conflict. As the mother guided her children toward the exit, she whispered one last reminder. Courage is not always loud, but it is steady, firm, and unwavering. The boy nodded, understanding that he had learned a lesson that would stay with him for life. He realized that facing injustice with calm authority and integrity could change the outcome of any situation. The store slowly returned to its normal rhythm, but the impact of the incident remained. People continued shopping, many still watching the mother and her children, recognizing that they had witnessed an example of true strength and composure. The boy felt a mixture of relief, pride, and understanding. He knew that his mother had protected him, taught him an invaluable lesson, and turned a frightening moment into a meaningful experience. The mother's actions that day were more than just about protecting her children. They were about teaching them, showing them how to face challenges, injustice, and fear with dignity. The boy understood that life would present unfair situations, but with composure, honesty, and courage, he could navigate them successfully. He walked out of the store holding his mother's hand, his heart filled with both relief and newfound understanding, ready to carry these lessons forward into his life. The store had settled into a tense silence as the mother continued to speak with senior management. Her voice was calm, each word measured, each point clear and precise. She explained what had happened, describing the incident without exaggeration but with enough detail to show the seriousness of the manager's behavior. The senior manager listened carefully, occasionally glancing at the store manager who had slapped the boy, now visibly nervous and sweating under the weight of accountability. The boy stood close to his mother, still holding her hand tightly. He felt a mixture of fear and relief, fear because of what had happened, and relief because he could feel his mother's strength beside him. Her calm presence gave him a sense of security that he had never experienced in that moment of shock. He began to understand the power of her quiet authority, the kind that demanded respect without shouting or threatening. The manager who had struck the boy tried to explain himself again, fumbling over his words. He mentioned the shelf, the child, and his own stress, but none of it made sense to anyone listening. The mother listened patiently, shaking her head slightly. Her eyes told the manager that excuses would not be accepted. She wanted action, not justification. The surrounding staff and customers watched the interaction closely, some nodding in approval of her composure, others whispering their support. The mother then calmly addressed the store staff, making sure they understood that no child should ever be treated this way. She emphasized the importance of respect, patience, and accountability. The employees listened intently, some shifting uncomfortably under the weight of her words. The boy watched his mother, impressed by the way she held herself, commanding attention without anger, teaching him more in that moment than any lecture could have. She then turned back to the senior manager and asked what measures would be taken to address the incident. She wanted assurance that the manager who had slapped her son would be held accountable, and that steps would be taken to prevent such incidents in the future. Her voice was firm but respectful, and the senior manager could not ignore her request. He nodded and promised an immediate review and disciplinary action. The boy felt a sense of pride. He realized that standing next to someone who believed in him made him feel braver. He understood that being calm and composed, even when others act unfairly, could be more powerful than shouting or retaliating. His mother's example was teaching him a lesson he would carry for life. The younger sibling clung tightly to the boy, still shaken but starting to calm down. The mother crouched slightly, speaking softly to them both. She reminded them to breathe and stay composed. She told them that fear is natural, but courage is facing fear with calmness and clarity. The children listened, absorbing the lessons not just with their ears but with their hearts. Meanwhile, the manager who had slapped the boy tried to regain some authority, speaking to a nearby employee. His movements were nervous, his voice lacking confidence. The mother's calm demeanor had shifted the power dynamic entirely. He was no longer in control. The situation was being guided by someone who acted with integrity and patience. The crowd sensed this change and began whispering among themselves, some expressing quiet admiration for the mother's approach. The mother then asked the senior manager if there would be a formal apology. She wanted the boy to see accountability in action, to understand that people must take responsibility for their actions. The senior manager agreed and asked the manager who had slapped the boy to apologize. The man hesitated, clearly uncomfortable, and muttered words that lacked sincerity. The mother, noticing this, suggested that the apology should be genuine, explaining that children can sense honesty and can be affected by insincere gestures. The boy listened, understanding the importance of integrity. The mother then guided her children to a quieter corner of the store, keeping them close. She whispered to them, reinforcing that they had done nothing wrong and that they should stay calm. She reminded them that real strength often comes in moments of patience and composure. The children, feeling the warmth and support of their mother, began to feel more secure. They watched as the manager struggled to explain himself, realizing that his actions had consequences. Some customers who had witnessed the incident approached the mother, offering words of support and admiration. They commended her for handling the situation with grace and authority. The mother smiled politely, thanking them but keeping her focus on her children and the issue at hand. She wanted her son to learn that while support from others is valuable, the true lesson lies in how one handles injustice with composure and integrity. The store staff, observing the mother's interaction with senior management, began to understand the gravity of the situation. They realized that accountability was not optional, and that respect for all customers, especially children, was paramount. The mother's calm strength had not only protected her child, but also served as a powerful example for everyone around. The boy felt proud, realizing that standing up for yourself sometimes means letting the right people handle the situation with honesty and fairness. The mother then focused again on the manager who had slapped her son. She spoke directly to him, calmly explaining that his behavior was unacceptable and that there would be consequences. Her voice was steady, her eyes unwavering. The manager, now fully aware of the seriousness of his actions, could only nod silently, unable to argue or justify further. The boy watched, understanding that true accountability comes from facing the consequences of one's actions without excuses. The mother reminded her children to observe and learn. She told them that life would present situations where people act unfairly, and in those moments it's important to remain composed, to seek justice respectfully, and to protect oneself with dignity. The children listened intently, feeling the weight and truth of her words. The experience was already shaping how they would respond to challenges in the future. The senior manager, seeing the mother's determination and calm authority, assured her that proper steps would be taken. He promised that the manager would be reviewed and that training would be conducted to prevent future incidents. The mother thanked him but remained vigilant, making it clear that she expected follow-through. The boy felt a sense of relief, knowing that the situation was being handled fairly and responsibly. The crowd in the store had shifted from curiosity to respect. People were watching a mother teaching her children the value of integrity, composure, and courage. The boy, holding his mother's hand, felt a mixture of relief and pride. He had faced fear, witnessed accountability, and learned a powerful lesson about standing up for oneself in a calm and dignified manner. As the situation began to resolve, the mother continued to reassure her children. She reminded them that courage is not always loud. Sometimes it is quiet, steady, and unwavering. She emphasized the importance of staying calm under pressure and using reason and composure to navigate difficult situations. The children absorbed these lessons, understanding the depth of their mother's wisdom and strength. The manager who had struck the boy remained silent, clearly affected by the mother's presence and words. He was no longer in control. The power had shifted entirely. The boy observed this change, realizing that true strength comes not from anger or aggression, but from calm authority and moral clarity. He felt empowered by the example his mother was setting, knowing that she had protected him while also teaching an important life lesson. As senior management took notes and prepared to address the situation formally, the mother stayed close to her children. She whispered encouragement, reinforcing that they had done nothing wrong and that standing with integrity matters more than any immediate reaction. The boy, feeling a mix of emotions, understood that this experience was shaping him into someone who could face injustice with courage and composure. The story unfolding in the store was more than just an incident. It was a lesson in accountability, dignity, and courage. The mother had transformed a moment of fear into a powerful teaching moment for her children. The boy, still holding her hand, realized that his mother's calm strength had not only protected him, but also shown him the kind of person he could aspire to be. The experience would stay with him, shaping his understanding of justice, respect, and the power of standing firm without aggression. The store slowly began to return to normal, but the impact of the incident lingered. People continued shopping, some still watching the mother and her children, realizing that they had witnessed something meaningful. The boy, feeling the reassurance and strength of his mother, knew that he was safe and that justice was being sought. He also knew that he had learned a lesson that would stay with him for the rest of his life, one that would help him navigate challenges with courage, dignity, and calm authority. The mother led her son a few steps away from the manager, still holding his hand gently but firmly. Her presence was a shield, giving him the strength to calm his trembling body. He looked up at her, confusion and fear still lingering in his eyes. She smiled softly at him, the kind of smile that says everything will be okay, and in that moment he felt a small surge of courage. He had seen his mother handle tough situations before, but never like this, standing firm against someone who had just hurt him. The manager was still standing there, frozen. He had expected a scared child and a mother who might beg for leniency, or at least not challenge him. Instead, he faced a composed woman who radiated authority and confidence. The crowd of shoppers around them started whispering, some pointing discreetly, others shaking their heads in disapproval. A few of them began filming quietly, understanding that what was happening was unusual and serious. The mother spoke softly but clearly, asking the manager why he had hit her son. She did not shout or accuse. She wanted a clear answer. The manager stumbled over his words, trying to justify himself. He muttered something about the boy being careless, about the shelf being knocked over, but his voice lacked conviction. He avoided eye contact, clearly uncomfortable with the growing attention and the mother's unwavering gaze. The boy stood close to his mother, still scared, but beginning to feel a small spark of hope. He realized that he was not alone. The presence of his mother gave him a sense of safety that had been missing since the slap. The younger sibling, who had been clinging tightly to the boy, started to relax slightly, sensing that they were now under protection. The mother kept her hands on both children, giving them reassurance without words. Some of the shoppers began speaking up, asking the manager to explain himself. They were polite but firm, questioning why he thought it was acceptable to hit a child. The manager's face grew red with embarrassment and anger, but he had no answer. The situation was quickly spiraling out of his control. He was no longer just a manager disciplining a child. He was being held accountable in front of witnesses. The mother listened carefully to the manager's weak explanations. She did not interrupt, but her expression showed that she was processing every word. Her calm demeanor contrasted sharply with the manager's visible agitation. She wanted to handle this with dignity, not anger. She wanted her son to see how to face injustice with composure and strength, not with fear or anger. After listening for a moment, she spoke again, explaining that hitting a child is never acceptable, no matter the situation. Her voice was calm but firm, carrying a weight that made the manager hesitate. He could see that she was serious, that she expected him to face consequences for his actions. The other shoppers were watching closely, some nodding in agreement, others whispering their support. The atmosphere in the store had shifted completely. The mother gently guided her son and his younger sibling toward a less crowded area of the store, keeping them close. She whispered to them, telling them to stay calm and not to argue with the manager. She wanted to show them that standing up for yourself did not always mean fighting back. Sometimes it meant being calm, being composed, and letting the right people handle the situation. The manager, still tense, tried to regain some control. He spoke to a staff member nearby, signaling for them to bring the senior manager. He was clearly worried now, realizing that the mother was not someone to be dismissed. He could see that her calm authority had drawn attention, and that people were watching his every move. He tried to explain further, but his words seemed hollow and ineffective. The mother stayed close to her children, ready to protect them if needed. She did not raise her voice or make sudden movements. Her strength was quiet but unmistakable. The boy felt reassured by this. He looked around at the people watching, some of whom had been recording the incident on their phones. He realized that there were witnesses now, people who could confirm that he had done nothing wrong. This knowledge made him feel a little braver, a little less afraid. A few customers began approaching the manager directly, asking why he thought it was acceptable to hit a child. They spoke politely but firmly, questioning his judgment and reminding him of the responsibilities he had toward customers. The manager's face turned red and he began to stammer, clearly uncomfortable. He had not expected anyone to challenge him, especially not in public. The mother, standing beside her son, did not speak at this moment. She let the customer's words reinforce her point, showing her son that support could come from unexpected places. The senior manager finally arrived, walking briskly toward the scene. He was a tall man, trying to maintain authority, but the tension in the store was palpable. The mother immediately addressed him, calmly explaining what had happened and providing details about the incident. She spoke with clarity and precision, ensuring that her side of the story was understood. The boy listened, feeling the weight of the situation but also the power of having his mother by his side. The senior manager turned to the store manager who had slapped the boy. He asked for an explanation. The manager tried to justify his actions, speaking quickly and nervously. But the mother interrupted gently, making it clear that hitting a child was never acceptable and that accountability was necessary. Her tone was firm but respectful, showing that she was serious without creating unnecessary conflict. The crowd around them was quiet, watching intently. Some of the shoppers whispered to each other, expressing surprise at the mother's composure and strength. Others took out their phones, capturing the moment. The store, which had been a place of ordinary shopping moments ago, had become a scene of confrontation and accountability. The boy standing beside his mother felt a mix of emotions. He was still scared, but he also felt pride. He was proud of his mother, proud of how she handled the situation, and he felt reassured that he was protected. The mother continued to speak with senior management, making her expectations clear. She wanted the manager who had slapped her son to be held accountable, and for proper steps to be taken to ensure this would not happen to anyone else. She remained calm, measured, and firm, demonstrating the kind of leadership and poise she wanted her children to emulate. Her words were not harsh or aggressive, but they carried a weight that could not be ignored. The boy watched all of this unfold, learning a powerful lesson about strength, justice, and calm authority. He realized that fear could be met with courage, that injustice could be addressed without anger, and that standing up for yourself sometimes meant relying on the support of those who cared for you. The mother's presence was a shield, but it was also a lesson, showing him how to navigate difficult situations with dignity. As the conversation with senior management continued, the mother ensured that her children remained calm and composed. She whispered words of reassurance, telling them that everything would be okay and that the right people were handling the situation. The boy felt a sense of relief, knowing that he was not alone and that justice was being sought. The younger sibling, still holding his hand, began to relax as well, sensing the protective power of their mother's presence. The manager who had slapped the boy grew increasingly nervous. He realized that his actions were being closely scrutinized and that he could face serious consequences. He tried to speak, but his words lacked conviction. The mother listened, maintaining her calm composure, showing that she was not intimidated by his attempts to defend himself. Her quiet authority filled the space, making it clear that she would not tolerate disrespect or violence toward her children. The crowd in the store continued to watch, some nodding in approval of the mother's handling of the situation. Others whispered about how unusual it was to see someone address such a serious matter with calm and dignity. The atmosphere had shifted from shock and tension to one of respect and awareness. People were witnessing a parent stand up for their child in a way that commanded attention and admiration. Finally, the mother turned her attention back to her children. She reassured them that they had done nothing wrong and that they should stay calm. She emphasized that the important thing was to remain composed and let the right people handle the situation. The boy felt a renewed sense of confidence. He realized that having someone who believed in you and stood up for you could make all the difference in the world. As senior management began to discuss the next steps with the store manager, the mother stayed by her children's side. She whispered encouraging words, helping them stay grounded despite the intensity of the moment. The boy looked around, noticing the supportive glances from other shoppers. He understood that the world could be unfair, but there were people who would stand with you, people who would support you when you needed it most. In that moment, the boy felt a mix of emotions: fear, relief, pride, and hope. He had been hurt, but he was also protected and supported. He had witnessed his mother handle a difficult situation with calm authority and grace. He understood that this was a lesson not just about accountability, but also about courage, dignity, and the power of standing up for what is right. The experience would stay with him, shaping the way he faced challenges and treated others in the future. The store slowly returned to normal activity, but the impact of the incident lingered. People continued their shopping, but the story of the boy and his mother had left a mark. The mother remained composed, her children close, ensuring that they understood the importance of calm strength and the value of standing up for oneself. The boy, holding his mother's hand, felt a quiet sense of empowerment. He had faced fear, and with his mother's support, he had survived it with dignity and courage. The store was crowded that Saturday afternoon. People were walking quickly, baskets in hand, trying to finish their shopping before the weekend rush got worse. Bright lights reflected off polished floors, and the low hum of conversation mixed with the beeping of cash registers. Among the crowd was a young boy around 12 years old, holding his younger sibling's hand tightly. The younger one clutched a small list of school supplies, looking excited and a little nervous. They were careful not to bump into anyone, quietly moving down the aisles. The older boy was polite and patient, watching the shelves and making sure his younger sibling didn't wander off. He picked up items from the shelves, helping the younger one mark off their list. The two worked quietly together, a small team focused on their task. It was just a normal day for them, a routine shopping trip that they had done many times before. As they approached the checkout area, the store felt more tense. There were long lines, and some customers were getting frustrated with the wait. A few employees moved quickly behind the counters, trying to keep everything in order. The older boy was careful, walking slowly and making sure not to drop anything. He even apologized quietly when he accidentally nudged a shelf, barely shifting a few small items. He didn't think it was a big deal. It was an accident, and he tried to be careful. But a store manager, a middle-aged white man with a stern look and a quick temper, noticed the boy. He was pacing behind the counter, watching the lines and muttering under his breath. When he saw the items that had fallen from the shelf, his face turned red with anger. He didn't ask what happened. He didn't stop to think that it might have been an accident. In that moment, he assumed the boy had done it on purpose, trying to make a scene or cause trouble. Without warning, the manager stepped forward and slapped the boy across the face. The sound echoed in the store, and everyone nearby froze. The boy staggered slightly, shocked and confused. He didn't understand why he was being hit. His eyes filled with tears, but he held them back, trying to stay calm. The younger sibling gasped and clutched the boy's arm, scared and uncertain of what to do. The people around them stopped and stared. Some of them whispered to each other, unsure if they should intervene. A few took out their phones, recording the incident quietly. The manager didn't seem to notice or care. He was angry and focused only on punishing the boy. His face was tight with frustration, his eyes cold and rigid. He was certain he was right, and in his mind the boy had to be taught a lesson. The boy's heart raced, but he didn't run or yell. He had learned to control himself in tense situations. He held his head high, trying not to cry, trying to understand why this was happening. He wanted to explain, to tell the manager it was an accident, but the words stuck in his throat. The world around him felt heavy and unfair. He could feel the eyes of strangers on him, some sympathetic, some judging, but none stepping forward yet. Nearby, a woman who had been shopping in the same aisle noticed the commotion. She was tall, with a calm but commanding presence. She saw her child, a flash of worry crossing her face. She moved quickly through the crowd, her pace steady but urgent. Her eyes were fixed on her son, who looked small and scared in the middle of the chaos. She didn't shout. She didn't panic. But there was a quiet determination in her steps. When she reached them, she gently placed her hand on her son's shoulder. Her touch was comforting, and he leaned into her for a moment, relief washing over him. She looked at him, making sure he was okay, and he nodded, trying to steady his breathing. She didn't scold him or make him feel bad for what had happened. Instead, she gave him a small, reassuring smile, letting him know he was safe now. The manager noticed the woman approaching and paused, slightly confused. He hadn't expected anyone to challenge him, especially not the boy's mother. He looked at her, sizing her up, trying to understand who she was. She didn't say anything immediately. She just looked at him calmly, her eyes steady and unflinching. There was no fear in her expression, only concern for her child and a quiet strength that made it clear she would not let this go unnoticed. The younger sibling clung to their older brother and looked up at the woman, sensing the tension in the air. The mother crouched down slightly, speaking softly to her son, reassuring him that everything would be all right. She didn't rush him or push him. She let him process what had happened while she prepared to handle the situation. Her calm presence helped the boy steady himself, giving him the courage to face the next moments. The crowd around them began to murmur. Some people whispered to each other, sharing what they had seen. Others looked at the manager with judgment in their eyes. The atmosphere in the store had shifted. What was once a busy, normal shopping day had turned into a moment of tension and observation. Everyone could feel the weight of the situation, the injustice of it, and the fear of what might happen next. The mother finally stood up fully and addressed the manager. Her voice was calm, measured, but carried a weight that made people pause. She asked what had happened and gave the manager a chance to explain. The manager, still flushed with anger, muttered something about the boy being careless and disrespectful. He didn't meet her eyes and avoided the scrutiny of the crowd. The mother listened carefully, making sure to understand the situation from both sides, even though she knew what had actually happened. She looked at her son, who was trembling slightly but trying to stay composed. She gently took his hand and led him a step away from the manager, putting herself between them. Her presence was protective, firm, and confident. The manager tried to continue his argument, but the woman's calm authority made him hesitate. She introduced herself, stating her name and mentioning her position as a CEO of a well-known company. The words seemed to shock the manager. His mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. He froze, realizing he might have underestimated the situation. The people around them also reacted, some whispering in surprise, others taking out their phones to record the unfolding events. The mother didn't raise her voice. She didn't yell or make a scene. She simply stood there, strong and unshakable, showing the manager that she would not tolerate this kind of behavior toward her child. Her calm confidence drew the attention of everyone in the store. The boy, standing beside her, began to feel a sense of relief. He could see that his mother was handling the situation, and he felt safe for the first time since the incident. Other customers started murmuring their support for the boy, and a few even spoke up, questioning the manager's actions. The store, which had moments ago been tense and uncertain, now felt the weight of accountability. The manager, realizing that the situation was no longer in his control, grew visibly nervous. He could see that his actions would have consequences, and the presence of the boy's mother made it impossible to ignore the gravity of what he had done. The mother's eyes never left the manager as she calmly asked for an explanation and requested to speak with senior management. She reassured her son, telling him that everything would be okay and that the right people would handle the situation. Her words were comforting but also empowering. The boy could feel her strength, and it gave him courage. He realized that standing next to her, he was not alone. He felt the power of her calm authority, the kind of strength that could change the course of the day. As they waited for senior management, the mother continued to hold her son close. She whispered to him, encouraging him to stay calm and proud. She reminded him that he did nothing wrong and that he should never feel ashamed for being treated unfairly. The boy listened, absorbing her words, feeling a mixture of relief and lingering fear. He was still shaken, but the fear was slowly being replaced with a sense of hope. The store around them had become quiet, almost reverent. People stopped their shopping to watch, realizing that something important was happening. The incident that began with anger and a slap had transformed into a moment of accountability and awareness. Customers and staff alike were witnessing a mother standing up for her child, and the message was clear: disrespect and violence would not be tolerated. The manager shifted uncomfortably, looking for a way to respond. But the mother remained steady, unshaken, and patient. She knew exactly how to handle the situation without escalating it. Her presence alone made it clear that justice would be sought, and the boy would be protected. She was not angry in a way that caused chaos. She was angry in a way that demanded respect and fairness. The boy, feeling this energy, stood a little taller, his fear slowly fading. He knew that with his mother by his side, he could face what came next.